You ever notice how life has this twisted sense of humor? You're wandering around, minding your own chaos, thinking everything is random, accidental, meaningless noise. And then, there it is, that same person again, the same face, the same pull, the same inconvenient spark you tried to ignore the first time. And just when you convince yourself it's nothing, that you're imagining it, that you can slip away unnoticed, something bigger pushes the moment back in front of you, like a hand tapping your shoulder, whispering, "Look closer, you missed something." And you feel that strange shift in your chest, the kind that doesn't ask for permission, the kind that doesn't care if you're ready or not. Suddenly the world feels staged, like the pieces were placed on purpose, like someone's been dropping hints in the dark, pointing at one person with a grin that says, "Yes, this one." And no matter how much you fight it, no matter how loudly your fear tries to drown it out, the truth keeps circling back, pressing against your mind, insisting that there's a reason you can shake them, a reason they keep reappearing in the middle of your beautiful little chaos. Repeated signs aren't coincidences. They demand recognition, but people love pretending otherwise. They hide behind logic, routines, and excuses, telling themselves everything is random, everything is accidental, everything is just noise in a crowded world. But deep down, everyone knows when something keeps circling back, it's not random, it's intentional, it's deliberate, it's a message disguised as repetition, slipping through the cracks of denial. You see the same person again, feel the same pull again, run into the same moment again, and you tell yourself it's nothing. You laugh it off, you brush it aside, you try to convince your mind that patterns don't mean anything. But patterns are the language of the universe, the only way it speaks without using a single word. And the universe does not repeat itself for fun. It repeats itself to get your attention. People pretend they're not paying attention, but they are. Oh, they are. Their heart stutters for a second, their breath catches, their mind jolts awake like a startled animal. But admitting that a sign feels like a sign, no, that would require honesty, and honesty is a luxury most people can't afford. Because honesty leads to responsibility, and responsibility leads to action, and action, well, action forces you to face the fact that something bigger than you is nudging you towards someone. It forces you to confront the possibility that your life isn't as random as you pretend it is. And that thought terrifies people more than chaos itself. The signs start small, a passing thought, a familiar glance, a coincidence that feels too precise. You shove it aside because acknowledging it feels like stepping into a story you didn't plan on participating in. But the signs don't care about your plans. They don't care about your comfort or your fear. They keep returning, pushing, pressing, circling your awareness like a quiet whisper that becomes louder each time you ignore it. You can dismiss the first sign, maybe even the second, but by the third, you start feeling that uncomfortable pressure in your chest, that little voice saying, "You know this means something." You feel it even if you pretend otherwise. And when the same person keeps showing up through circumstances too specific, too ironic, too precise, you start sensing something bigger at play. You start noticing how your thoughts drift to them, how your attention sharpens when their presence enters the scene, how the world feels strangely aligned whenever they appear. People call it intuition, fate, timing, destiny. You can dress it up however you want. But the truth is simpler. The signs are pointing somewhere, and you're either too afraid or too stubborn to admit it. But fear doesn't erase truth, and stubbornness doesn't cancel purpose. The signs don't stop just because you're uncomfortable. Repetition is the universe's way of smacking you in the face gently. If you ignore it, the signs get louder. If you resist, they become undeniable. Because when something matters, when someone matters, when a connection is written into the fabric of your life, the universe doesn't trust you to notice the first time. It repeats, and repeats, and repeats, until the message becomes impossible to ignore. People cling to convenience, so the universe uses persistence. People cling to excuses, so the universe uses precision. People cling to fear, so the universe uses familiarity, a familiar face, a familiar feeling, a familiar moment that echoes louder every time it returns. And that's the thing about signs. They don't ask for permission. They don't wait for you to be ready. They don't soften themselves just because you're too scared to admit they mean something. They simply appear again and again with a kind of eerie confidence, like they already know you'll eventually see what you're trying so hard not to acknowledge. The signs don't want your comfort, they want your awareness. They want you to notice the truth you keep running from. They want you to wake up. Most people spend their lives waiting for something obvious, some dramatic revelation, some grand event that spells out meaning in flashing lights. But life rarely works that way. It doesn't shout, it hints, it nudges, it whispers, it circles, it repeats, and only the ones paying attention understand that the repeated signs are the loudest message of all. They're telling you something important, something deliberate, something that keeps pointing to one person, because the connection is not random, not accidental, not replaceable. And once you feel that truth settling into your bones, once you recognize that repetition isn't chaos but intention, everything changes. Not because the signs become clearer, but because you finally admit what they've been trying to tell you all along. Certain connections return because they were meant to, and everyone knows it, even if they pretend not to. People love pretending everything is disposable, temporary, replaceable. Relationships, moments, emotions, all treated like cheap props in a play they barely understand. But then there's that one connection, that one person, the one presence that refuses to fade no matter how much distance you create or how deeply you bury the memory. You try to shake them off, laugh it off, explain it away, but life doesn't let you escape that easily. Not when it's deliberate, not when it's scripted with precision, not when their role in your story isn't finished yet. They show up again unexpectedly. Maybe in a moment you weren't prepared for, maybe in a place you didn't expect, maybe in a thought that creeps in at the worst possible time. And every time they return, there's this eerie familiarity, like the universe is placing the same puzzle piece in your hands over and over, waiting for you to stop pretending you don't see where it fits. Most people don't like that. They get scared. They want things clean, controlled, predictable. But real connections don't care about your control. They have their own gravity, their own timing, their own agenda. And what's funny is how people try to convince themselves that the return is accidental. They blame coincidence, algorithms, timing, anything but the truth, because admitting meaning requires vulnerability, and vulnerability requires courage, and courage, well, courage isn't exactly humanity's strong suit. So they minimize it, laugh at it, run from it, but the connection comes back anyway. It always comes back, like a shadow you can't outrun, like an echo you can't silence, like a reminder that knows exactly where your weak spot is. There's a reason it pulls at you, a reason it unsettles you, a reason it refuses to dissolve like everything else. Some people arrive to shake you awake, tear down your illusions, and reroute the entire direction of your mind. They carry something familiar, something sharp, something timeless. And the moment you meet them, even if you don't understand it, something in you shifts. It might feel like curiosity, fear, chaos, recognition. It doesn't matter. What matters is that it sticks. It roots itself. And even if you try to ignore it, the connection waits. The return is the proof, because life doesn't waste energy bringing back anything meaningless. If someone keeps reappearing, slipping through the cracks of your routine, resurfacing in the moments you thought you'd moved on, there's a reason. And not some small sentimental reason, no, something bigger, something woven into your path before you even noticed it. something that tugs at your instincts in ways logic can't touch. People try to silence that instinct, but instincts don't vanish. They simmer, they watch, they wait for the moment when denial cracks, and denial always cracks. The connection returns again, maybe through a conversation, a memory, a dreya, a sudden thought that enters your mind with the force of a storm, and the more you resist it, the heavier it gets. That's the thing about what's meant for you. It doesn't politely knock and then leave when you don't answer. It stays at the door. It rattles the handle. It slips under the frame. It pushes its way into your awareness until you can't pretend you didn't see it. Because you did. You always did. People think meant to be sounds romantic, but it's not. It's raw. It's uncomfortable. It's terrifying. It forces introspection. It drags hidden emotions to the surface. It rearranges your priorities without permission. And no matter how much you try to maintain the illusion of control, the connection pulls you back in. Not because you're weak, but because some bonds are wired into your story in ways you can't sabotage, outrun, or rewrite. They're part of your design. And what's even more unsettling is that the connection doesn't just return externally. It returns inside you. You feel it in the pit of your stomach, the back of your mind, the strange tightening in your chest when their name crosses your thoughts. That's not coincidence. That's not random firing of neurons. That's recognition, familiarity. Truth resurfacing from beneath layers of fear and excuses. Some connections return because they never left in the first place. They were dormant, waiting for timing, waiting for clarity, waiting for you to finally look past your fear. Once you realize that, once you feel that deeper pull that doesn't care about distance, silence, or time, you stop asking why they keep coming back. You start asking why you ever thought they wouldn't. People say timing is everything, but they forget how unpredictable timing can be. They imagine life as this neat little calendar with perfect slots for perfect moments, neatly labeled, color-coded, manageable. But real timing, the kind that actually matters, doesn't ask for your permission. It doesn't follow your plans. It doesn't wait politely while you get your life in order. No, real timing is chaotic. It strikes when you're distracted, unprepared, off balance. It loves catching you with your guard down. It loves making you question everything you thought you had or control. And that's exactly how it works when someone is meant to cross your path again. The timing always feels strange, too soon, too late, too intense, too sudden. It'll never be convenient. It'll never be simple. It'll never be the way you rehearsed it in your mind. It arrives like a glitch in the system, a tiny disruption that grows and grows until you can't ignore it anymore. That's when most people panic. They want life to follow rules. They want connections to follow schedules. They want their emotions to show up at predictable hours like well-trained pets. But timing has a twisted sense of humor. And when it brings someone back around, it's rarely because you're ready. It's because you're meant to face something. It creeps in quietly at first. A message, a memory, a feeling, a sign you can't explain. You brush it off. Tell yourself it's nothing, but then it returns, louder, clearer, more deliberate. The timing tightens like a noose around your old excuses, and that's when you start realizing that maybe, just maybe, this isn't random, because life doesn't repeat a moment unless there's something in it you still haven't understood. People underestimate the precision of timing. They think chaos means disorder, but some chaos is engineered with surgical accuracy, like when two paths cross at the exact second both people need it, even if neither wants to admit it. The timing exposes your hidden fears. It pokes at your unresolved feelings. It forces you to confront the part of yourself you've been avoiding. That's why a moment feels so inconvenient. It's not meant to be comfortable. It's meant to shake you awake. You try to resist it. You tell yourself it's the wrong moment, the wrong phase, the wrong circumstances. But the timing laughs at your logic, because every time you declare yourself not ready, that's exactly when the universe drops the person right back into your orbit. Not to punish you, not to tease you, but to align something deep, something inevitable, something that won't happen if you're too busy pretending you don't feel the pull. And the timing keeps tightening. The more you ignore it, the more obvious it becomes. You notice patterns. You notice coincidences that don't feel like coincidences. You notice how their presence, even the thought of their presence, hits you differently now. Stronger, sharper, more real. Like the timing finally clicked into place, even if the rest of your life hasn't. That's the trick. Everything else can be messy, broken, chaotic, but the connection itself arrives with clarity, crystal clarity, unavoidable clarity. People don't like that kind of clarity. It exposes too much. It shows them who they're drawn to and why. It shows them the truth they tried to bury under routines, distractions, and temporary replacements. And when the timing aligns again, all those flimsy distractions crumble like cheap cardboard. Because the real thing stands out. It always stands out. It's the only thing that feels alive. The timing is a test, not of patience, not of loyalty, but of honesty. It asks you if you're willing to stop lying to yourself. It asks whether you're brave enough to acknowledge a connection that has survived distance, silence, fear, and your own attempts to destroy it. Most people fail that test, not because they don't care, but because caring terrifies them. Timing doesn't care about that terror. It brings the moment in you. And when it comes, you feel it in your voice, in your pulse, in the way your thoughts shift without warning. There's a tension, a pull, a familiar pressure, like something inside you knows exactly what this moment means, even if your mind is scrambling for excuses. The timing exposes the truth you've been orbiting around for far too long. It doesn't ask for acceptance, it demands recognition, because when someone reappears at a moment that feels impossibly specific, impossibly pointed, impossibly charged, it's never just timing for the sake of timing. It's timing with intention, timing with purpose, timing that refuses to be ignored. People always assume that when life brings someone back to them, it's because everything is supposed to be warm and sweet and sentimental. They think it's some kind of poetic reunion, like two puzzle pieces finally clicking together with a soft little, "Ah, yes, this makes sense." But life isn't that gentle. Life isn't that tidy. When someone is pulled back into your world, especially after distance or silence or confusion, it's rarely because everything is peaceful. More often, it's because something underneath the surface has started to tremble, something that refuses to stay buried, something you've tried to ignore, silence, or outgrow, but it keeps breaking through the cracks like a stubborn voice you can't quite mute. And that thing is connection. Not the polite, convenient, manageable type. I'm talking about the kind that gnaws at you. The kind that lingers even when you pretend it doesn't. The kind that keeps showing up in small signs, repeating patterns, familiar glances you can't forget. The kind that doesn't care about your pride, your plans, or your carefully crafted emotional armor. It claws its way back into your awareness because it has unfinished business. It's a thread that never snapped, even when it stretched thin. A pull that never fully let go, even when both of you tried to walk in opposite directions. Most people don't want to admit they feel this. They'd rather call it coincidence. They'd rather label it nostalgia. They'd rather tell themselves it's just habit or weakness or a trick of memory. But deep down, deep down, they know better. They know when someone has a place in their life that nobody else has managed to fill. They know when a bond refuses to fade the way it logically should. They know when someone's presence, whether physical or distant, shakes something in them that nothing else does. And when that person reappears, or their name resurfaces, or their energy circles back into your world, your heart reacts before your brain has time to protest. That reaction is the truth, but truth is inconvenient. Truth is dangerous. Truth disrupts routines, and people love their routines more than they love clarity, so they bury it. They try to suffocate it under distractions, responsibilities, and half-hearted attachments. But this kind of connection, it has a pulse of its own, a wild, unpredictable pulse. It wakes up when it wants to. It whispers when you try to silence it. It drags you back to memories you pretended didn't matter. And when life sends this person near you again, physically or emotionally, it triggers that pulse like a spark hitting dry gasoline. That spark isn't random. It's not meaningless. It's not accidental. It's the universe nudging you, shaking you, reminding you that some connections are carved deeper than your logic wants them to be. You don't choose them. You don't schedule them. You don't control them. They simply exist, rooted in something beyond your reasoning. And when that person comes back around, even for a moment, the feeling hits you with uncomfortable clarity. This isn't over. This never actually ended. You just covered it with noise. ND hoped it would shut up, but it won't. And what's even funnier is how this connection exposes your most guarded parts. The parts you hide from everyone else. The parts you pretend you don't have. With them, walls crack, masks loosen. The image you try so hard to maintain becomes irrelevant. You become raw, unfiltered, flawed, real. They see the version of you that slips through the cracks when your guard is down, and somehow they don't flinch, they don't run, they understand it. Maybe because they carry the same fractures. Maybe because their soul recognizes the disorder in yours. That's what makes this connection so dangerous. Not because it's toxic or dramatic, but because it's honest, truly honest. And honesty is terrifying, especially when it comes from another human being who mirrors your own depth, your wounds, your longing, your chaos. You don't get many people like that. Most are surface-level chapters, a few are footnotes. But some, rare, unsettling, unforgettable, are entire volumes you never finished reading. And when one of those people shows up again, the air shifts. Something inside you wakes up, stretching like it's been asleep for years. You feel the old electricity, the old familiarity, the old intensity. But it's not old at all, is it? Because the connection didn't fade, it just went quiet, waiting for the right moment to stir again. Waiting for a window when both of you would feel the pull more sharply, more unmistakably, more truthfully. So the moment they reappear, everything inside you recognizes them before your mind catches up. Like your soul leans forward a little. Like it whispers, you again. People crave comfort like it's oxygen. They cling to easy paths, predictable routines, and safe little emotional hideouts because the unknown terrifies them more than any monster under the bed ever could. And when a connection starts to test them, really test them, they panic, they run, they hide behind excuses, masks, and carefully rehearsed lines about timing or circumstances or how they're just not ready. As if readiness is something life waits for, as if the universe sits there politely tapping its foot, saying, "Oh sure, take your time, I'll bring this person back when you feel brave." No, life doesn't work that way. When someone is meant to challenge your comfort, they appear right when you'd rather stay asleep, right when your world is balanced just enough to avoid shaking. That's the joke of it all. The right person rarely arrives wrapped in softness. They come with the kind of presence that rattles your bones a little. They make you feel things you weren't prepared to admit still existed inside you. They push you toward parts of yourself you'd rather not explore. Not because they're trying to fix you or break you, but simply because their existence disrupts the numbness you've been hiding behind. And deep down, you know it. You can feel it, like a hand pressing lightly against your chest, urging you to step forward instead of crawling back into the shadows you've gotten so good at living in. The truth is, when someone shakes your comfort, it's not a mistake. It's not an accident. It's an invitation. A very uncomfortable one, sure, but still an invitation. It's life asking whether you want connection or convenience, whether you want truth or routine, whether you want someone who challenges your patterns or someone who lets you rot inside them. Most people pick the easy option, the one that lets them feel safe and numb instead of alive and vulnerable. But every once in a while you meet a person who doesn't let you pretend, someone who sees right through your carefully built layers, someone who doesn't get fooled by your calm voice or your controlled expressions or your quiet little lies about how you're fine. This person looks at you and something inside you feels exposed, not in a humiliating way, but in a way that says, finally, someone sees what I've been hiding from myself. It's unnerving, isn't it? Being seen, really seen. Most of your life you've been performing, shaping yourself into versions that keep you safe, agreeable, untouched. But with this person, the performance glitches, cracks, falls apart. They trigger your realness, and realness is messy. Realness forces you to confront your fears, your patterns, your wounds, your desires. It forces you to admit the things you'd rather bury under noise and distraction. And here's the twist. The ones worth holding on to are exactly the ones who bring that discomfort. They don't tiptoe around your wounds. They don't let you stay small. They don't let you sink into the same old habits that keep you isolated and numb. They poke at the parts of you that ache. They ask questions you don't want to answer. They create a tension that feels like pressure, but it's the kind of pressure diamonds come from. And deep down, even if you resist, even if you push back, even if you pretend you don't care, something inside you knows you need that tension. That without it, you'd stay stuck in the same stagnant pool you've been drowning in for years. But comfort is addictive. It whispers to you, telling you that it's safer to let go, safer to stay the same, safer to avoid the person who challenges your numbness. That whisper grows louder when your heart starts to react, when your emotions surge in directions you can't control. That's when most people choose escape. They walk away not because the connection is wrong, but because the connection is too right, too intense, too revealing. It scares them, it exposes them, it shows them what they could be if they stopped running. But here's the interesting part, the strongest con. Shins don't care about your fear. They don't vanish just because you try to pretend they're insignificant. They linger, they echo, they return in dreams, in memories, in unexpected moments. They tug at you when you think you've finally escaped. They remind you again and again that some people aren't meant to let you stay comfortable. They're meant to make you grow. They're meant to push you deeper into yourself. They're meant to wake you up from the safe little sleep you've been living in. Clarity is a funny thing. People say they want it, they beg for signs, they pray for answers. But the moment clarity actually arrives, they squint like it's too bright, too sharp, too revealing. They'd rather live in a comfortable fog, stumbling around with their eyes half closed, pretending they don't know what they already know. Because once clarity shows up, really shows up, you can't plead ignorance anymore. You can't keep playing pretend. And suddenly the truth you've been dodging becomes impossible to unsee. That's when people panic. That's when they start calling their own instincts confusion and their own intuition overthinking, just to avoid admitting that the universe has been handing them the answer on a silver platter. And that's the trick of it. When signs keep aligning around one person, when patterns repeat with a suspicious level of precision, when coincidences start stacking up like some cosmic wink, it's not madness, it's clarity, pure, uncomfortable, undeniable clarity, the kind that doesn't knock politely. It kicks the door open, walks in, and sits across from you like, well, still going to pretend you don't see it? But people hate being exposed even to themselves. So they squirm, they rationalize, they bury the very truth they asked to receive. Funny, isn't it? How someone can spend nights questioning, wondering, replaying conversations, dissecting memo. Rees, desperate for answers, only to reject them when they finally appear. Because clarity isn't always gentle. Sometimes it feels like a spotlight on your chest, highlighting every emotion you tried to downplay. Sometimes it feels like being caught red-handed by your own heart, and admitting the truth means admitting you felt something real, something you didn't plan for, didn't control, didn't expect. Realness terrifies people more than chaos ever could. But clarity, it doesn't vanish just because you look away. It lingers, it waits, it sharpens itself in the dark, and every time you try to deny it, it grows louder, heavier, more persistent. You begin to notice patterns you dismissed before. A familiar pull when you hear their name, a strange ache when you think of them, a sense of recognition that you can't logically explain. It's like the universe keeps tapping your shoulder, whispering, "Look, look again." And whether you admit it or not, you feel that little jolt in your chest every single time. You can try to tell yourself it's coincidence, that life is random, that you're imagining the repetition. But deep down, beneath all your excuses, you know when something is too deliberate to ignore. You know when someone's presence keeps resurfacing because there's unfinished meaning behind it. You know when clarity is trying, desperately, to get your attention. And you know when resisting, it starts to feel like lying to yourself with a straight face. What makes this clarity so hard to swallow is that it exposes your emotional fingerprints. You realize that this one person affects you in a way no one else does. They move something in you, unlock something you didn't show anyone. They stir up emotions you thought were dead, reactions you thought you'd buried, parts of yourself you didn't want anyone to see. Clarity forces you to admit that their impact wasn't temporary. It wasn't accidental. It wasn't shallow. It stayed. It lingered. It rooted itself somewhere you can't reach with denial alone. And maybe the scariest part is how clarity makes everything else look dull. You start noticing how other connections feel forced or faint in comparison. You notice how conversations lack the spark, how interactions lack the depth, how nothing quite hits the way it did with this one person. Not because you're obsessed, not because you're desperate, but because some bonds simply stand out. They carry a different weight. They leave a different mark. They have a way of echoing inside you long after the moment has passed. That's the kind of clarity life sends when it wants you to pay attention. Not the soft, maybe kind, but the relentless, repeating, impossible to ignore kind. The kind you feel in your chest before you understand it in your mind. The kind that loops back around until you acknowledge it. And the funniest part? The moment you stop fighting it, even for a second, everything starts making sense. The signs, the timing, the coincidences, the strange familiarity, the pull that wouldn't go away. All of it starts to align like pieces of a puzzle you pretended you weren't assembling. Clarity doesn't show up to scare you. It shows up to wake you, to remind you that some truths don't disappear just because you're not ready, and some people don't cross your path over and over without a reason. Resistance is a funny creature. It dresses itself up in logic, in caution, in that calm little voice that says, No, this can't be real. You're exaggerating. You're imagining things. It pretends to protect you, to keep you grounded, safe, controlled. But what it's actually doing is choking the truth right in front of you. Because when something is undeniable, when a connection is too strong, too familiar, too persistent, your mind starts scrambling, desperate to regain control. And that's when resistance slips in like a sly little shadow, whispering excuses, warnings, distractions, anything that keeps you from acknowledging what your heart already knows. At first, resistance feels responsible, sensible. It tells you to slow down, think rationally, question everything. Not because it cares about truth, but because it cares about keeping you comfortable. It knows that admitting the truth means admitting vulnerability. It means admitting attachment. It means admitting that someone out there has the power to move you in ways you can't fully explain. And nothing terrifies a guarded heart more than realizing someone else has that kind of influence. But the funny thing about the truth is, it doesn't stay quiet just because you tell it to. It leaks through the cracks. It shows up in the way your chest tightens when you think of them, in the way your voice softens when you talk about them, in the way your mind drifts back to moments you